things you had.
Yeah, we had it all, you know. We had each other. You know, maybe that's why I have this mentality when it comes to the music. I know I'm gonna figure it out. Just give me some time.
In the entertainment capital of the world, where fortunes are made and lost in a single night, where dreams crystallize into stardom or crumble into dust, one man's name whispers through the corridors of power like a carefully guarded secret. Bruno Mars. October 8th, 1985. While mainland America pulsed to the sounds of MTV and synthesizers, on the isolated volcanic islands of Hawaii, something extraordinary was beginning to stir. Peter Gene Hernandez. That was the name on his birth certificate. But names, as he would learn, are just the beginning of any great transformation. His father, Pete Hernandez, was a Latin percussionist who had traveled the world before settling in paradise. His mother, Bernadette, brought the soulful rhythms of the Philippines. But it was the collision of these cultures in the melting pot of Hawaii that would forge something unprecedented. Even as a toddler, Peter would move to any music that played. But it wasn't just dancing, it was like he was communicating with the rhythm itself. By age 4, he was performing Elvis Presley impressions at his family shows. The tourists loved the novelty, a tiny Hawaiian boy channeling the king of rock and roll. But what they witnessed was more than mimicry. They were watching the birth of a shapeshifter. The islands that had given birth to surfing, to a culture of performance and storytelling, were now nurturing something that would eventually conquer the world. But first, the boy who would become Bruno Mars had to lose everything he knew. Los Angeles, 2003. 18-year-old Peter Hernandez stepped off a plane with $600 in his pocket and a head full of dreams that the city of angels specialized in crushing. The boy who had been a star in Hawaii was now nobody in a city of 8 million nobodies, all convinced they were destined for greatness. For years, he knocked on doors that wouldn't open, performed at venues that barely paid for gas money, wrote songs that record executives dismissed with a wave of their hand. But in the shadows of Hollywood's rejection, something was taking shape, something that would prove more valuable than instant fame. He began writing for other artists. Flo Rida's Right Round, Brandy's Long Distance, songs that climbed the charts while their true author remained invisible. Peter was different. He didn't just write melodies, he crafted entire sonic worlds. You could hear influences from every decade, every genre, somehow perfectly blended. The rejections that had crushed his performing dreams were actually forging him into something more dangerous, a complete artist. Producer, writer, arranger, performer. And somewhere in those late Hollywood nights, as he perfected his craft in anonymity, Peter Gene Hernandez began to disappear. And Bruno Mars was born. 2010, Atlantic Records, a conference room where careers are made and buried. And sitting across from label executives was no longer the struggling songwriter they remembered, but a fully realized artist who had spent 7 years becoming somebody else entirely. Just the Way You Are wasn't just a song, it was a statement of intent. Here was an artist who could channel the romance of the 1960s, the soul of the 1970s, and make it feel urgently contemporary. The song climbed to #1 in 18 countries. But more than the commercial success, something else was happening. Music critics were struggling to categorize what they were hearing. Bruno Mars shouldn't exist. In an age of auto-tune specialists, here was someone who could sing like Stevie Wonder, write like Paul McCartney, and perform like James Brown. Doo-wops and hooligans arrived like a time machine, carrying listeners back to an era when artists were expected to do everything and do it flawlessly. But Bruno Mars wasn't interested in nostalgia. He was excavating the past to build something entirely new. Grenade showcased his range, from gentle crooner to anguished confessor. Each song revealed another layer of an artist who seemed to contain multitudes. The world was beginning to realize they weren't just witnessing another pop star's rise. They were watching the emergence of an entertainer whose ambitions stretched far beyond the recording studio. Because Bruno Mars had learned something in those years of rejection and anonymity. Something that would soon revolutionize live entertainment itself. If you're captivated by Bruno's incredible transformation from struggling songwriter to global superstar, you won't want to miss what comes next. His Super Bowl performances that redefined halftime shows, the mysterious rumors surrounding his Las Vegas lifestyle, and a secret collaboration that would earn him his biggest Grammy sweep yet. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this story is about to get even more extraordinary. Now, let's witness how Bruno Mars didn't just conquer the music industry. He completely reimagined what it meant to be a live performer. 2012. Behind the closed doors of rehearsal studios across America, something unprecedented was taking shape. While other artists focused on studio perfection and social media presence, Bruno Mars was obsessing over something the music industry had begun to forget. The live experience. Stories began to circulate. Rehearsals that lasted 14 hours. choreography practiced until every gesture was muscle memory. Musicians pushed to levels of precision that bordered on the supernatural. Bruno wouldn't just rehearse the songs. He'd rehearse the moments between songs. The way he'd walk to the microphone, the angle of his hat, everything was calculated, but it had to look effortless. Unorthodox Jukebox revealed an artist who had mastered the art of controlled chaos. Locked Out of Heaven pulsed with reggae rhythms and rock energy. When I Was Your Man stripped everything down to raw vulnerability. But it was the live performances that were rewriting the rules of concert entertainment. February 2nd, 2014, MetLife Stadium. Super Bowl 48 halftime show. 115 million viewers watched Bruno Mars prove that spectacular didn't require guest stars, costume changes, or elaborate stage productions. Just pure, undiluted talent. The performance was a masterclass in controlled energy. Every move had been rehearsed thousands of times, yet it felt spontaneous, alive, dangerous. Critics called it one of the greatest halftime performances in Super Bowl history. But more than that, it established Bruno Mars as the gold standard for live entertainment. However, success of this magnitude comes with a price. And in the neon-soaked world of Las Vegas, rumors began to swirl about the cost of perfection. What price was Bruno Mars really paying for his pursuit of artistic excellence? Las Vegas, the city where fortunes disappear faster than morning mist in the desert sun, where the brightest stars sometimes burn out in the most spectacular fashion. By 2016, as 24K magic dominated airwaves worldwide, whispers began circulating through the corridors of Vegas casinos and Hollywood boardrooms. Whispers about Bruno Mars and debts that allegedly reached astronomical figures. $50 million. That was the number that entertainment insiders spoke in hushed tones. Nobody talks about it publicly, but the stories persist. High-stakes poker games. Private rooms where the minimum buy-in is more than most people's houses. The rumors painted a picture of an artist whose perfectionism extended beyond the studio and stage, into the high-stakes world of professional gambling. Whether truth or fiction, the stories added another layer to the Bruno Mars mystique. An artist whose public persona radiated control and precision, possibly living a secret life where everything was left to chance. But if pressure existed, it only seemed to fuel his artistic fire. 24K Magic was a love letter to the 1980s and 1990s that somehow felt completely contemporary. The album spawned a world tour that further cemented his reputation as the premier live entertainer of his generation. 6 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. The kid from Hawaii had not only conquered mainstream success, he had achieved critical acclaim at the highest levels. But Bruno Mars wasn't finished transforming. His next evolution would prove that even at the peak of solo success, he was still capable of complete reinvention. 2020, a year when the world stopped, but creativity found new ways to flourish. In the isolation of a global pandemic, 2 of music's most perfectionist artists found each other. Anderson .Paak, drummer, rapper, singer, producer. On the surface, an unlikely collaborator for Bruno Mars. But both men shared something that transcended genre, an obsessive commitment to musical authenticity. What emerged from their collaboration wasn't just a side project. It was a completely new artistic entity. Silk Sonic, Leave the Door Open, arrived like a transmission from a parallel universe where the 1970s never ended, but somehow sounded completely modern. The 2022 Grammy Awards. Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, as Silk Sonic, swept every category they were nominated for. 4 Grammy Awards for a single song. It was more than recognition. It was validation of an artistic philosophy that prioritized craftsmanship over trends, authenticity over algorithm-friendly content. Silk Sonic proved that in an era of streaming and social media, audiences still crave real musicianship, real instruments, real chemistry between artists. But perhaps more significantly, Silk Sonic revealed something profound about Bruno Mars himself. After more than a decade of solo stardom, he was still capable of complete artistic submission, willing to share the spotlight in service of something greater than individual ambition. It was the mark of a true artist, someone whose ego served the music, not the other way around. In an entertainment landscape defined by fleeting viral moments and algorithmic success, Bruno Mars built something increasingly rare, a career based on mastery. From the struggling songwriter who wrote hits for others to the solo artist who redefined live performance standards. From the mysterious figure allegedly haunting Vegas poker rooms to the collaborative genius of Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars didn't just adapt to the music industry. He forced the industry to remember what it had forgotten. That entertainment, at its highest level, is about more than streams and social media followers. It's about the ancient human connection between performer and audience. The electricity that happens when preparation meets inspiration in front of thousands of witnesses. Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, James Brown, Prince. The lineage of entertainers who understood that music was just the beginning. That true artistry required the complete transformation of ordinary moments into something transcendent. Bruno Mars didn't just study these masters. He absorbed their essence and channeled it through his own unique filter. Today, as streaming platforms prioritize quantity over quality, as artists build careers on social media presence rather than stage presence, Bruno Mars represents something that seemed endangered: the complete entertainer. The boy who left Hawaii with $600 and a dream didn't just become a star. He became a reminder of what stardom could be when pursued with relentless dedication to craft. Peter Gene Hernandez transformed himself into Bruno Mars. But perhaps more importantly, Bruno Mars has transformed what we expect from our entertainers. In an age of artificial intelligence and auto-tune perfection, he remains defiantly, authentically human. A shapeshifter whose greatest trick was never losing sight of the music that made him want to transform in the first place. And the story is still being written.
Yeah.